every day for the last few days, or for a little bit of time each day, I've been working on the anachronistic lingerie. You remember that's the saucy thought that inspired the whole idea for the balcony, and this young lady is acting as my model. I've had her for many years, and the main thing that seems to be successful at the moment as a way of doing it, this is an attempt to make the little corset or bustier. I struggle to focus, it's so tiny. It's by making trying to imitate her torso in, yeah, it's really struggling to focus. Just trying to imitate her torso in brown sculpting wax, to which absolutely nothing sticks. It's very difficult to get anything to stick to it at all, but just by kind of dipping it, really. There's one in one is being dipped in PVA and one is being dipped in Mod Podge, just to see what the differences are. They've had about 3 or 4 layers so far, and in a minute I'm going to try and cut them by trimming the top and bottom edge slightly, and then slicing down the back and seeing if that sort of retains its form. And then there's little bits in there, straps and what have you. A tiny little paper version of the bustier, which is just too small. It's gone to like 15mm scale. Experimenting with different ways. It's intensely fiddly. It's the fiddliest thing of all that I've done. There's an attempt to make a bra there out of paper. And it's tricky when the difference between an A cup and a C cup is about 1 or 2mm. I think that's more of a junior training bra than anything else. I'm going to have to keep working on those, and it's kind of interesting, and it's a very interesting challenge, because you're going for something that's meant to look delicate at life size, and then you're doing it down at that scale. But we press on. And now I am making a paper bra, or half a paper bra in any case, because I thought if I get a paper pattern, sewing pattern, and I print that off really tiny, remember it's got to be sort of the width from underarm to underarm of my lady is about 5 or 6mm total. I thought if I print that off really small, I could cut it out, assemble it, paint it, but it's so complicated. Bras are ridiculously complicated. I've learnt that some bras have the cup made out of 3 pieces of fabric, and some have them made out of 2 pieces of fabric, but that's how it goes, and I still can't work out where those bits go. I suppose that quadrilateral bit must be the first part of the side that goes under the armpit, but I don't know what the devil those bits are for. And it says on it stuff like cut 1 main, cut 1 interfacing, cut 1 power mesh, overlock edge, turn under and zigzag, overlock edge again. And I don't understand what any of that means. Hopefully it's irrelevant for sticking it together in paper. And you thought this video was about making a model building, didn't you? And not sculpting teeny tiny lingerie. I don't know what these bits are for. Oh well, I'm starting to question the meaning of my existence. I've got it. I've figured it out. That says cut to foam. So those are for inside the bra cups. Ah, I'm a genius. That is the that one there, after many sessions of struggle, is now finished, apart from just cutting off that one remaining strap, which I've left for ease of handling. It needs a bit of paint to actually give it some strength, but that is the 7mm bra, measured from armpit to armpit. Drusilla is actually 5.5mm from armpit to armpit, so the ladies visiting my version of butterfly bras, you have to have watched these videos right from the very start and to have paid attention to get that reference. They need to have a standard cup size, because I can't do more than one cup size. This is the not finished yet. That's the 6mm one, and the bustiers have a larger cup size, and that, if I can bring myself to try and do it, that is the 5.5mm from armpit to armpit. Right, you can see how I did it. I had to print it off at about a quarter real size, and it's a centimetre actually, the pattern. I had to lay it on a black surface, photograph it, then edit it all down again, doing some quite complex arithmetic to get the scale right, and then I have to cut those 3 pieces out, and those cups are therefore whatever that is, look, 4mm, no, 3mm across, and so you've got a little piece of 3mm wide piece of paper on your thumbnail, and you've got to cut out the dart and then somehow bend those 2 pieces together and get them and hold them long enough for the glue to dry, which is only a second or 2, but if you take a second or 2 too long, it'll already dry. And I haven't got 2 pairs of tweezers tiny enough to do it, so it's but I am getting there. I think just getting them to hang on the washing line and to actually hang is going to be a problem. And just so we go off that subject for a moment, that is the broom for Quandam was, which is going to hang outside his cottage door. It's not right yet. It was the bristles were too parallel, and I've been having to trim these off in a minute, but I have to stuff more bristles in there to make it splay out more at the end. I'm wondering if it's quite long enough. Probably is long enough, but it's more bristle than stem, so I'm not quite sure if I'm happy with that. But that's taken some time as well. Now, this is my attempt to make stockings for the washing line, and this is an experiment really before I start making them properly. That is brown modelling wax and 2 coats of Mod Podge, and the idea is that when it's dry, the first coat went completely transparent, so I may have to add a little bit of paint. The idea is to take that and put those into hot water, and the hot water will melt away the modelling wax. You can use red cheese wax that you get from Baby Bells and Edam cheese if you like. The idea is that wax should melt away. Whether or not it would be possible to get it out of the thin tube, I don't know. And whether or not the Mod Podge will stand up to the hot water, I don't know. Or how many dips into the hot water it will take. Well, there we go. That's what experimenting's about. Sometimes it's frustrating when waiting for things to dry. It takes a very long time. And meanwhile, you can see that I have finished Quondam Waz's broomstick, which is hanging on a hook outside his door, and that's dependent on a blob of glue. I have to be very careful. You can see I've still got the weights on the winch, but I've made anything that hangs or dangles, I've allowed it to hang or dangle, because otherwise it can just spoil the whole look of the whole thing. I'm holding my phone level as I can to the ground, so you can see the skew. It's important to get all of that right. It's the slightest little bit that doesn't hit the vertical. Somehow the human eye just picks it up like a wonky picture frame. But I couldn't leave the broom to hang freely by itself. It was just too delicate. So I decided I have to stick it on, and a piece of masking tape is just holding it there until it dries. It's 2 days later, and I'm really pleased with the result of the experiment. It was very tricky to get the brown modelling wax out, but eventually I managed it. Just a case of keep dipping it into warm water, which was there, and sort of teasing it out with a cocktail stick. Eventually it came, and I've even managed to form a bit of a heel on there, which I think looks okay. It did come out looking very plasticky, and that's just the nature of Mod Podge. That's why I don't like it for many uses. I don't like using it as a varnish on gaming terrain, because it just makes everything look plasticky, which is the problem with acrylic, but it makes it look more plasticky even than acrylic, even though it's supposedly a matte one. So there's more in production, and this time I'm actually trying some inks and paints in them to see what that does. Now that's a layer of Mod Podge, and then a second layer with in some cases some ink or paint mixed in, and then the reason it took 2 days is after it can take about 12 hours to dry. I'm surprised how long it takes to dry. But then I will turn this stick by 90 degrees, and I can put just some dots of Mod Podge on to form the heels, and then a second dot on top of that. And then I've decided that if I turn it over, I just add an extra drip to the bottom, because sometimes you get a drip on the bottom, sometimes you get too much of a drip, sometimes you don't get a drip. You need to sort of form a drip with subsequent layers to get a kind of heel to form. And then I don't know whether or not putting the paint or ink in with the Mod Podge is really a good idea. It might be better to paint them afterwards. Certainly if I want to try and do some sort of witch stockings with green and black stripes or something, Wizard of Oz style, that will need to be done as paint on top after it's been removed from the wax. I don't know, actually, it might be possible. The part of the problem with the wax is we are in July, and it warms just under the heat of your fingers when you're handling it like that. When you're using it for sculpting, it's best not to touch it with your fingers very much once you start getting into the fine details. And even to when I used to use it to sculpt things to eventually make bronze castings, I went between working sessions. I used to put the whole thing in the fridge to help it to firm up. It's quite tricky to work with in tiny little bits like this, because it's too soft too quickly. I've decided that I've finished all the weathering on the building, just dirtying it up, and it is a case of deciding rather than knowing that you've finished, because it's just very easy to go too far. So before you go too far, you've got to stop, otherwise you're going to end up undoing stuff. And it's time now to do a little bit of vegetation. Now everything else in the entire building, as far as I can think, has been scratch built. I've gone from just the raw materials really to make it. Not so much these things, because these are tufts of it's flock that's put on. No, it's fibres that are put on with onto a glue base with usually using an electrostatic gun, and you can do it yourself. You can even make the electrostatic gun yourself, but they can be anything from 50 to £100. If you're a model railway builder and you're going to be doing that all the time, it's probably worthwhile investment, but it isn't for me, as I really just need tiny little bits. The main important thing to know about these is to cut them, not to leave them in circular blobs. That's just ordinary traditional flock. I probably won't use very much of that. It's not really, looking at it, it's not really any different to the little bits of green that I made from, oh goodness knows, just crumbs and sawdust and little bits of paper and paint. But I can be a little bit more generous with it there, and different effects can be obtained by mixing those three colours. And this is a new material to me. It's very different to the stuff that was used for foliage when I was just a lad, which was reindeer moss. It was very rubbery and didn't take paint. This is some kind of fibre. It's like a shredded soft foam, really, and apparently it sort of, if I remember, yeah, you can see here on the diagrams on the back, it kind of forms in clumps, and I wanted, originally it seemed very, very important that I had a vine coming up here to sort of hide this area where I thought there were mistakes. They're hidden away as my little access tunnel. I don't really want it hidden away now, but I'm still going to have a bit of vine. I need to put the poop in there, and the overflowing poop here. All right, I've gone off topic now, but there's a little experiment with making liquid poop. That's the UV resin and some brown paint. Not quite sure it looks right. So we might do a little bit more experimenting with poop. But oh yes, back onto this. Yeah, just a case of being very, very careful. Just really trying to simulate a little bit of moss. Where might a weed tuck in? That's where the building's been ripped away, so there's not going to be any there. But along this front edge, just along the street, there would be the odd bit of weed growth that you see at the front of the buildings. I'm not quite sure. I did try to spray bits of green. Yeah, that's kind of working. Interestingly, to my eye, I can't see that green. But looking at the screen on my phone as I film this, I can see the green. So the camera's picking up, maybe by sort of correcting the light, that there's a bit of mossy thatch underneath the older wizard's hut. I might just put a little bit of grass growth or something in on our upper surface. It's all going to be about restraint, and less is more in just putting in. Certainly, I think maybe in here there might be some little tufts of grass.